Hey folks, Mike Stoffergen here with Showstopper Sequences. I just completed the sequence for It's the Season for Love, and I felt that it was a sequence that really needed a mapping video. The sequence is kind of unique in that a lot of the effects will need to be mapped at the prop level and not the group level. But I will say that if there's sequencing to the group level listed on the right side when you are importing, go ahead and map that group to your analog or similar group. The sequence itself can be broken into two parts. In the first part, I outline the display. Let me show you what that looks like. We'll start it up here. Okay, and you see the lines going across, and they start outlining the house, and then ultimately the entire display. And then the second part is where we fill in, and that is starts around the 45-second mark. Let me scroll over to that point, and we will start there. And you can see what the fill looks like. Okay, the fill is the concept behind it is that we've got this fairy dust, this pixie dust, and as it hits the various props, it's going to turn that prop on into color. So we've got the two parts where we outline the display, and then the second part where we come back and we fill the display in. So let's talk about the first part. So let me get this out of the way. And the outlining, I'll start here with the house outline. I'll show you what that looks like. And you'll see here that each of the individual props has 3 layers associated with it. Okay. On the first layer is a single strand, and the single strand is what gives us that initial movement. And then about halfway through that single strand, on the second layer, there is a color that comes on. The brightness on that, though, is only set to like 30%, so it's very faint in the background. In this instance, it's the gold color, but having it on kind of gives it a consistency so that people watching can actually see that there is a line there. And then the third layer is actually the twinkles. And the twinkles have white, light gold, dark gold, and kind of almost off-white color that twinkle to try to give it that warm white look that's so common with traditional incandescents. So that's our pixel dust. What it does is it lights it up. Now, to help you map that first part, what I've done is I've included in the download a PDF file entitled It's the Season for Love House Outline Order. And the house outline order simply lists in order the props that I fill in with this glittery fairy-inspired sparkles to outline the display. Now, it's important to understand that these effects are the same for every prop. So the order does not matter. The name of the prop does not matter, but the order matters. So you can take this door peak left, and if you want your first, strand that you're going to show on your display to be your, left side of your house, well, you would just map this to the left side of your house. So it really doesn't matter. You can map from, dissimilar props, because all you're doing is you're going to be doing it in a specific order, and I give you that order in that PDF file. So that's something important to remember. Now, each one of these is triggered on a timing mark on a timing track called strings, and I'm going to switch over to the strings. and you can see where they are. They show up in green here. And so each one of these is triggered not to a beat, although it may coincide with a beat, but it's actually triggered by one of the strings that we have. Now, to kind of correspond that or correlate it to the music, I'm going to play it for just a second, and you'll see the timing marks. Let me zoom in a little bit, make it a little more apparent. Okay, so you can see that every time there's one of those timing marks, there's a change in the strings and the orchestral part of the music itself. And what that helps do, rather than tied to the timing beats, what that does is it kind of gives the whole thing a more ephemeral, light, airy look to it, because it follows along with those strings instead of the beats. All right, so there's going to be 28 of those before the arches kick in. And let me show you where the arches kick in. They're going to kick in right here, right before the 37.5 second mark. Let me call that up so you can kind of see what it does. I'll put that on 37 seconds. Okay, so you can see there with the arches are a little bit quicker than the others. And so let me show you how that looks. You can see here the length of the others in terms of the line effect, the single line effect right here. That's kind of roughly the size of those. But when I come down here to the arches, again, which are individually done, you can see here that the arches are much shorter in length. And the reason why I did that is because it goes with the music. As the music speeds up, I shortened those line pieces. Now, the others, they still kick in at the halfway point. So you can still do that. But just be aware that the arches are a little bit different. The other thing that you need to know is on the icicles. Let me expand those. Now, the icicles, I start out, and you'll see here I've got several of them going at the same time. But the garage door icicles, the entrance icicles, and the right side icicles, instead of doing them from, say, left to right or right to left, what I've done is I've got those coming from the middle. So those are the two variations, big variations that I've got on the mapping of the outline. First is the arches, where we've shortened it, and then on the certain parts of the icicles, they're gonna come in from the middle. So just be aware of that, because if you map it and you don't get exactly what you want, take a look at the chase type, whether it's from the middle. Another point, you can change on the others where on any of these, like this one right here on the right door vertical, it goes from left to right. Well, if you map that to a prop and you're saying, well, it would look better if it went from right to left, just change it. It will not matter. You can change those so that you get the flow across your display that you want. So there's some flexibility there in doing that. All right, so what I recommend you do for mapping purposes is you identify the outline portions of your display, whatever that is. And I've included that house outline order, PDF, and I recommend you print that out and then write the name of the prop or props that you're going to map each one of those two right next to it. So when you actually sit down and do the mapping, what you can do is just select the order that you want, because you know with the exception of the arches and the select icicles, you know with that exception, all those prop outlines are going to be basically the same. So it doesn't matter what the prop is. What matters is the order. And I've given you that order so that you can apply it to your display when you're doing the mapping. Now, what is the right order? There is no right order. The right order is the order that you select. In other words, it's your display. You know what's going to look good. You know where your audience sits and watches your show. And so what you want to do is you want to create something that is visually appealing to them. Now, what do you do if you have more props than we do on your outline? Because I know there's people who have lots of bigger displays than what we have. Well, what you can do is you can combine two or more of the props together and have them trigger at the same time. And you'll see that I did this here with the garage window frame, the main window frame, and the small window frame. They all trigger at the same time. So those three are identical, going on the same ones, and it looks really good because then the whole window frame. Now with those, I did rotate them 90 degrees because I did not want it going from left to right. I wanted it going from the bottom to the top. And so if you look here, what I did was I rotated it, and I'll go to the layer settings. And you'll see there that I rotated it counterclockwise 90 degrees. And that again was to get it to go from the bottom to the top on those windows. And that's the only time I did that with that. But if you encounter something, you can manipulate the directions of these single lines any way you want to make it look good. And that's the idea with your tweaking when you get done, is you're just trying to make it look good. What do you do if you don't have enough props? Okay, so that becomes a little bit trickier, but here's what I recommend you do, and it'll work just fine. All right, so go through and do your initial mapping. Okay, and then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to map a second time. And let me do this. The way you do this, and I'm just going to pick my left garage door vertical, let's say that. And I'm going to insert a layer above, and then I'm going to add 2 layers underneath that one. So now I've got 3 blank layers above the 3 layers that I have already mapped in. So if I come up here and I go to import effects, I'm going to actually go from the same sequence. All right, so now the one that I was mapping to is the left garage. Hang on a second here. I'll take a look at that, make sure I get the name right. Okay, so the left garage door vertical. So let me find that. It is 02.6. So I'll scroll down here. Left garage door vertical. That's what I'm going to be mapping to. And let me say I want to map to that. Find something that I know that will come a little bit later. I'll just select the left yard, although that's probably not something I would do, but I know that it comes after. So I'm going to put that in there, left yard 2, tell it OK. I'm not going to save it. Oops, I meant to say yes. All right, so you'll look here on our left door garage vertical. What it did was it inserted the second one above the first one. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these here, and I'm just going to draw it over. And I'm going to have it fade out, and then it's going to outline a second time. So if you don't have enough props, what you can do is go in, add 3 layers, go back in, and then map a second, if you will, outline to it. And what that will do is it will give you, even though you don't have enough props, it'll give you enough props to actually get all of those points in, all of those movements in, so that it matches up what we've got. All right, so that's the outline portion. From the 45-second point on, we're in the filling the display. Again, the concept there is they've got some magical fairy pixie dust that turns the props on once it touches the props. All right, the first wave goes from the star to the right. And let me bring this up. Get it set here so you can see it. Again, this starts at about 45 seconds. All right, so that one went down to the right. Now, what does that? And let me show you this. We'll get up to that portion of it. You'll see here there are two water effect, or liquid effect rather, two liquid effect things that will take it and shoot that over to the right hand side. And once those pixel dust, once that turns on, then of course the other props will come on slightly after that. All right, so the key thing on this is the X and Y over here. If we look at the effect settings, the X and Y will determine how it's going to appear on the screen. All right, so how I created those, I'll show you. I went to the tools and I generated 2D path. And let me bring this up, make it a little bigger so you can see it. And I know that I'm going to be using what's called a focal point group. So I'm going to start as close to the center as I can. And then I'm going to manipulate that to create an arc, if you will, that I'm going to create. And all I did was I double clicked to create the additional points. And you can go back in and you can manipulate these, and you can add more if you want to make it look smoother. All right, all the things that you can do to make it real easy. And then you're going to generate the X and Y coordinates. All right, so let me call this one, I'm going to call this one swoop right. And we're going to go ahead and save that. And now I'm going to close this. So then if I come over here and I click on the X twice, it's going to allow me to add an X. So if you come down here and we'll have a, let's see, we need our swoop right. Okay, the swoop right is there. So I'm going to select that, tell it OK. And then we have the swoop right Y value that is put there. All right, so that's how we set what direction that's going on. Now, what I found is that sometimes you don't get exactly what you want. And there's two ways to deal with that. Okay, the first way is you can go into the tools, generate the 2D path again. You can load what you've already done. So I'm just going to reload the swoop right. Okay, and I've got those there, and then I can edit that, to get it closer to what I need. Let's say that that point was not where I wanted it. So you can come in and you can edit that, and then you can generate it, and you can name it the same. And it'll ask you if you want to overwrite. You just tell it yes. All right, so that's one way that you can manipulate that to make your swoops go exactly where you need them to go. Another thing that you can do, and you'll see here that I did it originally, is I went into the layer settings for that effect. Oops, close that. Went into the layer settings here, and I actually manipulated the render buffer. And I did that so that the start of the swoop would start about where my star is, because I used a focal point group there, and ended over by the smaller mega tree on the right. And I did that by making the render buffer a little larger, and then just taking it and, you know, using my left key, you can hold it down and you can manipulate it and you can move it around. And what that will do is it will actually move that buffer. All right, so just be aware, those are two things that you can do to affect those swoops. So let's say you wanted to use the swoop right and the swoop left that I've already got in there, and you know, if you wanted to manipulate that, you could. But that's how you determine which way those swoops go. Now, there's three of them there. The first one, this first group here, is a swoop right, where it swoops down to the right. This one is a swoop left. It goes to the left to the larger mega tree. And this one is a down and then swoop right. What that does is it actually does the right side of the yard. And then the final one I put over here on the house less the yard group. And basically what this one is it's a circle. It goes all the way around the house a couple of times. And that's how I create the pixel dust that's going to fill in the house itself. So the path of each one of these is manipulable. What I mean is you can change it so that it fits your display. The easiest way to do it is create a new 2D path. Now I did mention that I made a focal point group. And the focal point group itself, let me show you how that is set up. It's pretty easy. Now, focal point group, I've got three of them in my layout. I've got one for my starburst. And if you click that, you'll see that the center is located on the starburst itself. I've got one for the mega tree, and then that's the mega tree. And then I've got one for my matrix. And what the focal point groups do is it allows me to change the center point of any effect that I put on that group, and it helps direct people's attention to that prop. And you'll notice that the prop is not actually in the focal point group. The reason why is because it's probably going to be doing something different than everything else. And so I did not want to include it in that group. All right, so let me show you a real easy way to make a focal point group. Easy way to do it. Let's say I wanted to do one with my Showstopper snowflake. All right, so I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go on my everything. I'm going to right click. I'm going to clone that group. Okay, there we've got it. All right, I'm going to rename that group so that it matches my naming conventions. All right, so I'm going to rename it. Pull it out to the side here, and I'm going to put it underneath my FPG matrix. So it's going to become 01.1.4. It's going to be a group, but it's going to be FPG, focal point group, Showstopper snowflake. Okay, so that's my naming convention. And I'm not going to save the alias because I've never done any sequencing to that. So I'm just going to tell it no. All right, so I've got now, you'll see here we've got that FPG Showstopper snowflake. All right, I come over here to the right. Look at where the center is. Well, there's two ways to manipulate the center. You can come over here and you can play with these numbers, but a much easier way is to come over to your display, right click above the prop, And then you'll see a set center offset here. Okay, so I'm going to select that. Give it a second, and you'll see there that now the center is located right above the Showstopper snowflake. And then I'm going to come over here on the left, and I'm going to find the Showstopper snowflake right here, and I'm going to remove it from the group. All right, so now I've got a focal point group that I created for the snowflake. The reason why I mention this is because you may not have a Bethlehem star, but you might have a big spinner. You might have, a prop that you want to be the center of all the activity. And so you can create your own focal point group, and again, it just helps you with your sequencing, because rather than having to adjust the X and Y of every prop that you put on, or every effect that you put on that group, now you know that the center is going to be, in this instance, the Showstopper snowflake. All right, so I'm going to save that. We'll get out of there. I'm going to get back to the sequencer. So anyway, that's how you create the focal point groups. And you can use them. Now, when you turn on the props, here's what I recommend you do. Map to the full props, and you'll see the ones that are the full props. I mean, I've got the first iteration where it comes through. I've got mini trees, and I've got the small mega tree, and all that comes on. The second group, it's candy canes, it's a twig tree, it's the large mega tree. That's the second wave. The third wave, I've got the arch snowflakes. I've got pixel poles and the stars. I've got the Showstopper fountain. Everything on the right hand side. So the way to handle that is you'll map whatever prop it is, and then you've got to figure out, okay, when does the pixie dust hit that prop? And based on that, all you'll do is you'll take the start of the effect and move it to where the pixie dust does in the timing mark. Say, for example, let me come down here. Let me get into... let me just pick the Showstopper spinner. Okay, let's say you map that to something, but the way yours is set up, the way your layout is set up, is that it actually hits that at the 55-second mark, all right, or there close to. All right, so all you've got to do is you got to take that and move it over. Just drag it. Just left click, drag it over. What I did to make it easy, now all the props, once they get turned on, they stay the same all the way to the end of the sequence to where they fade out. So you can just change when the prop turns on just by adjusting the start point so that it matches when your pixie dust actually hits that prop. All right, so those are my recommendations to help you map this. Again, it's a little harder map than what you might be used to, but I think once you get done, you'll be very pleased with the end result. I know I was really excited when I got done with this, and I said, yeah, that's it. It kind of captures the magic of the season. It's got a Disney look and feel to it, very light, airy, fairy pixel-like. All those things are all very good. So anyway, again, I hope this helps you. And of course, if you have any questions, please contact me. You can contact me via the website. In addition, if you encounter something that helps you map this, please let me know, and I can put it in the comments for this video, or if you would like to share something that will help everybody who comes after you, feel free to include it in the comments on this video. Well, anyway, have a great day. Hope you enjoy your sequence.